So today we're rolling into the Wild Wild West.
Let's get down to business.
Hey guys, welcome back to Whisky Business. I'm Levi.
And I'm Evan.
And today we've got something pretty cool for you. We're keeping it in Australia and we're heading over to WA. It's a beautiful state of Western Australia.
Absolutely.
Evan, why don't you tell us what you brought along?
So we have brought along Limeburners, which is one of the more exciting whiskies that has come out of Australia. Like, one of the best things that has is every state has seemed to have jumped on board with whiskey making and sort of stuff. And we're starting to see stuff come out of WA. It's been in the work for a while because this stuff is actually aged up to 8 years.
Yeah, which is
really long for an Australian whiskey.
Especially an Australian whiskey that's not from a particularly cold climate. I mean,
Exactly,
it's in the southern part of WA, but it's not like Tassie, so...
Absolutely. So it's super interesting. So this is by the Great Southern Distillery. We are doing their Infinity Solera Cask. So Solera is a specific style of making whiskey, which is really hard to explain as a bit of a layman. Like, I had a brief look at it and it's just like, I'm not going to even try. Hopefully one day we might be able to get a distiller on the show and actually talk through this kind of stuff, because it is a really interesting process. So this is actually made from local barley over there, which is great, and then it is finished in port puncheons. So a puncheon is actually a larger barrel. So
Yeah.
I found this out as well, is that the English wine barrels, they all have different names after this. So really fun names. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is in a puncheon, which is about almost twice as big as a standard wine barrel or sort of stuff like that. So there's a lot they put in there, which maybe explains how they're able to do it for 8 years.
Yeah, it does. And I think we talked when we were doing the Iniquity small batch that quite a few of those are done in really quite small barrels, I think, casks or whatever they're called. So it obviously does make a difference to the way that the whiskey is aged and how it's barreled and then how it finally comes out in the taste. So anyway,
Let's go. Cheers.
Quite fruity on the nose.
Really fruity on the nose, but not a lot to it.
No.
Once again, like the Starwood Twofold we did a couple of weeks ago, not a lot on the nose.
Really, smells very sweet.
Oh, couldn't be more different on the tongue though.
Yeah, that kicks.
That kicks hard.
Quite. That's not the whiskey. That's got a frog in the throat.
Bit of spice there.
That's really pushing that heat fire
I
down
know,
through as
yeah.
well. It's punchy in the gut. I'm still
But
got
God,
to be honest.
the flavour is
flavor's incredible.
Really rounded. Like, you do
really
get the fruitiness of the port, kind of almost back of the mouth to the sides. Like, you feel that kind of stick around there. So you've got this lovely aftertaste, this lovely feeling in your mouth and throat after you have a glass of it. But yeah, definitely punchier than I expected. That is actually a 43% alcohol. Once again,
You'd think it was higher.
Yeah, you'd think that was around a 50.
It's quite interesting because I think the flavour of it is quite mild in the way that it's sort of, like you talked about, it takes you on a bit of a journey and it's got a profile and it rises and falls. But certainly the flavour profiles are just a massive juxtaposition to the heat and that sort of really sort of the harshness of that.
This thing that Australian whiskey is managing to do, which is be very light on the nose but really heavy on the flavour palette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good though. We should stress that that's... I think for me, the difference between something like what we did a few weeks ago, the Ben Nevis, and this in terms of that heat is that it's not offensive. I thought the Ben Nevis when we did that was it's pretty rough to get down. That's not hard to drink, I think, because the flavour profile's a bit better and it is quite sweet and quite light in terms of its taste.
Brings out a little bit more caramel at the bottom.
It's very sweet on the nose, that whiskey. Oh, water definitely. That really rounds it out so much. That's really good.
You're still getting that lovely flavour. You're still getting that heat, but that heat has dissipated just a little bit. Hits kind of the back of your throat and then kind of just stings a little bit there, but in a really nice way.
Without the water, I think that sort of got down to the heart and it was like a proper burn.
It's a proper
Whereas
whiskey.
this, it's not doing it now with the water. It's got that warm sort of tickle.
I don't feel you get that really rounded fruitiness at the back. The spice is dissipated a little bit.
I think it's interesting because I would say that the flavour profile without the water is much better. You get a lot more boldness and it's a lot more rounded.
But that's a lot easier to drink.
That's a lot easier to get down.
A lot easier to drink.
Not hugely different, but just enough that you can see why you do it one way and then you do it another as well.
Alright, let's see what happens when we make it cold.
Really, really wonderful flavour profile. I can't stress that enough. It's actually delicious in terms of the flavour. I just think they need to round it off a little bit more for that heat. It's a bit
Once
hard.
again, what's really weird is that I'm getting more and more caramel on the nose as we dilute it.
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't smell nearly as fruity now.
no, but it's still, you still get that caramel notes and that sweetness and sort of stuff like that.
I don't think the ice does a whole lot.
No,
to
it
be
really
honest.
doesn't. It was really the water that really did help round out the flavour, really did open up the sweetness a little bit. The fruitiness was dulled a little bit, not hugely. Still have that great spice, but it was really about helping balance out that heat, that fire and sort of stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and I think it's interesting because on the nose, you obviously, you taste through smell as much as you smell. Yep. On the nose with that, I think it comes across as very, very fruity, and then when you drink it completely neat, it comes across as very, very fruity. Then you mix a little bit of water in there, it starts to get a little bit sweeter and like a little bit less fruity. It starts to become more of sort of a sugar rather than a fruity sweetness.
I couldn't find out how much they charred the inside of these port puncheons or anything like that, but I'm guessing with the caramel flavours, there would be maybe some light charring.
Well, funnily enough, I think the first, when it's really neat, I would have thought probably not at all, or very, very little, but then you put a bit of water into it, it starts rounding out, you have to heat it, and you probably think more and more.
Looking at the colour as well, and let's bring this up properly so you guys can see. Not only is it just a gorgeous colour, that is a gorgeous bottle.
Yeah, we probably don't take enough time to talk about bottles when we're doing this show, but that's a cracking bottle. That's going to look good on a shelf.
It looks good on a shelf. It holds more than enough whiskey. Great label as well, like really great texture on it and sort of stuff like that. It is the one thing I love most about the smaller distilleries and sort of stuff. Like, they've realised you have to put the time into the presentation and how it looks and sort of stuff, because there are people who buy whiskey aesthetically.
Well, and even if not necessarily the ones that buy, I mean, I certainly do. My collection needs to look good because otherwise my wife would kill me and wouldn't let me have it. But I think that when you walk into a shop, especially, a lot of people will buy a whiskey without necessarily having tried a glass, which is totally fine. That's cool. We've all done it. I've been there. And you probably do buy a little bit with your eyes. So Starwood has got a bunch of really cool bottles. Limeburners does as well. The Optimal bottle's super cool. Makes a difference.
The Nance bottles that we did near the start of our run, they have some just really nice small,
I think when
easy to go with.
When Roths, I think from memory,
that circular. Yeah, I do like that one.
It makes a big difference. But yeah, just in terms of flavour profile, really interesting. It's a really lovely flavour. It's really wish that they'd found a way to round that harshness off a little bit. It might be what they're going for too. Who knows? A little bit.
I don't know. I think now that the ice has had a chance to melt a little bit in there as well, like, I'm really not getting much of that harshness at all. It's really kind of dissipated and you're just getting that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it as well. I think it is definitely a whiskey you'd want to drink with water as well. Like, whether that's a melting ice cube or just having yourself a little pipette nearby or something like that. Definitely do it. Not that it's a bad whiskey to drink neat, but it's just, if you want to make it a little bit easy to drink, definitely have some water on hand.
It's interesting because I think I prefer the flavour profile of it neat, but it is quite harsh. It is easier to drink with the ice or with the water, but I think you lose a lot of the really lovely elements of its flavour. So
absolutely,
it's a bit
It's interesting.
It's a tough one in that regard, but it's a delicious flavour. It's definitely worth a go. It's quite different. I think it's fair to say. We say that for every whiskey that we ever drink, but that's quite fruity. It's quite sweet. It's not sort of a real like traditionalist whiskey either. It's, but it's really, really good. I think that if it was probably with a bit of ice in there, it is the sort of thing that would be great for a beginner too, because it's not a super impactful whiskey flavour. It's a very easy drinking thing, and it's not gonna kill you to do it.
So, time for rating, I suppose. So, a bottle of this at Dan's going to set you back about $143.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. Really not cheap. This is definitely in that more expensive range, along with a lot of Australian single malts. That's where it's going to get you. In terms of comparing against other things in their price points, I mean, we've got to point it out right away. At that price point, you're getting in that Nant level.
Yeah.
that's where it's going to get tough.
And I think it's not the problem with Australian whiskey, because certainly Australian whiskey is good and they can charge whatever they want, but you get up to those sort of price points and you are starting to talk about the really storied distilleries in Scotland and in Ireland.
That's when you're getting to the 15 years, the 18 years, and sort of stuff.
And you're also talking,
and
you're also talking about the high-end Japanese whiskies as well, which are sort of very, very well known.
If they're available.
And it's not a bad thing. I mean, they can charge whatever they like, and they age these things for 8 years. There's a lot of time and effort and craft put into it, and it's a wonderful flavour. But if you're stacking it up in that regard, side by side, it becomes it's an investment and it's a different sort of conversation.
And it is definitely absolutely something you really want to try a glass of first.
Yes.
More than anything else we've recommended that on. It's not that it's a bad thing to invest in a bottle, but if you're going to invest that much, it has to be something you know you're going to like.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it with the Naked Grouse, and we said it with the Starward, and we've said it with a few others. Like, go and buy a bottle, you're not going to go wrong with that for $140. No. If it's very different, and if it's not something that you enjoy, it's sort of just going to sit there. And it's a nice bottle. It's going to look great on the shelf.
Go definitely try a glass somewhere. You'll find it at most whiskey places and sort of stuff. But this is usually what we do after the rating. I think we're avoiding it because as much as we love it, we know it's not going to be super high. I'm going to go with an 8.
It's still pretty high.
Oh yeah.
Still happy with it?
Yeah, I'm still happy with an 8.
I think it's really hard because I think if I was saying purely based on the flavour with nothing else in it, drinking it neat, I'd probably agree. It's probably an 8. It's a really wonderful flavour, but that harshness you can't get away from that. So I think you've got to bump it down for that. And then if you compare it to when it's got a bit of water or a bit of ice in it, it's not as harsh. It's really easy to drink, but you lose a lot of that really lovely flavour.
True. Yeah.
I think at that price point for me, it's probably a 6.
Okay.
I'd drink it. I would happily have a glass of it if someone put it in front of me, and it's a wonderful whiskey to talk about because the flavour profile is really interesting and really unique. But for $143, it's a steep price point.
So it looks like we're at a 7 overall for it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's
a reasonable.
That's reasonable fare. Like it is. Once again, this is where it gets tough with our rating system because we really like this whiskey, but we have to be realistic when we're talking to you guys, and especially if you're getting started. We don't want to overload you by thinking that the more you spend, the better the whiskey you're going to get. And I think that's kind of what weights our decision sometimes, is we definitely want to rate within a price point, but then we also have to be realistic that price point's going to be sometimes unachievable for some people.
Absolutely. And I think that, we never ever should do this again, but I'm just going to do it for this one. If you're talking about rolling into Dan's to buy a bottle and that's sitting there for $145, for instance, and you've got the twofold, or you've got some of the Nant stuff that at the same price point, you'd pick the Nant, or if you don't want to spend that much, you'd pick the Starward. So
absolutely.
It sort of sits in. I think for me, it kind of.
There's even another Western Australian whiskey which we're going to review in the future called Upshot, which once again, about half the price, but still a fantastic drop and sort of stuff like that.
Right.
There's plenty of stuff out there, and I think if you're beginning, I think more than anything, we don't recommend going out and amassing a collection of bottles until you're sure. Until you're sure it's something that you want to do. If you just want to get out and try a whiskey, the best way to go with any of these, head out, make some friends at a whiskey bar, and just try it there.
Yeah.
And whiskey bars are a great way to learn about stuff that we're not going to talk about either.
Yep. Absolutely. But $143, a 7 overall. I think that's good.
Fair.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. We had a lot of fun reviewing the Limeburners, and it was really good to kind of look at. This is definitely one of our favourite whiskies, but sometimes we have to be a bit realistic when we're talking to you guys about whether it's something worth investing in, but absolutely head out and buy a glass. We can't really stress that more than anything.
I think we've got to be comparative too, and we need to make sure that it's fair and understandable for people watching it, I guess, how we're doing a comparison, and it's not as if we've got a particularly scientific method to our scoring, so there has to be some sort of subjectivity to it as well. But it is a really, really good whiskey, and I hope that that came across. We're just saying that at a price point and as a comparative thing, there are others that might be, I guess, a bit better for people that are starting and
absolutely
as well. So,
but nothing taken away from it is fantastic.
It is really good,
But heading into next week, it is our last episode for the year because couple of days before Christmas, we'd like a little bit of a break over the period, so we'll be coming back in January. But for our last episode, Levi, what are we bringing?
You know how excited I am. I'm not gonna tease it. There's no sizzle on this. We are doing a 16-year-old Lagavulin. It is my favourite whiskey. I'm super excited about it. Everyone probably already knows what I'm going to score it, so there's not a lot of not a fanfare to that. But you can be interested to see how Evan reacts. We'll talk a little bit about how it comes about. I'm pumped. It's my favourite whiskey. I can't wait for it.
Oh, wonderful. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Please, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see us do in the new year as well, because we are really excited to do some more stuff for you. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching, and
make sure to keep your business whiskey. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.